Hello, GeekGirlCon! Thanks so much for being here with us tonight for our Women in Gaming Roundtable. My name is Alyssa Prime, and today I'm joined by an incredible lineup of current and former GeekGirlCon staffers who have worked in the game industry. First things first, let's do some quick intros. Go ahead and let folks know your name, your pronouns, your visual descriptors, and let's say maybe like something about yourself in the like how your relation to the game industry. So how long you've worked there, maybe a title that you've had, whatever you want to share. I'll go first. My name again is Alyssa Prime. My pronouns are she, her. I've got on a gray hoodie and I have long red hair and an orange headset. And I have been working in the game industry for about 10 years now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rabecca, aka Latina Geek. My pronouns are she, her, aya. I am a QA tester at Harebrained Schemes, a 3D freelance artist. I've been in the industry on and off actually for about 6 years. I did the math today. And 3 of those years have been full time and not a contractor.
Oh, hi, I'm Jo. I use she, her pronouns. My visual descriptor, I have black and pink hair. I wear black frame glasses, and right now I'm wearing a black t-shirt with a very fine gold necklace that I got at the Georgetown Art Market. I'm a producer at Harebrained Schemes, and I previously worked on Battletech there, and I'm currently working on an unannounced project. Before that, I was at Bungie, where I worked on Destiny 2 and its expansions, and before that, I was at Xbox, so I've been in the industry for about 7 years, 8 years now. Also, I care deeply about diversity and inclusion stuff and founded the Bungie Diversity Committee in 2017 and was a founding member of the HBS Jedi Council, where Jedi stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Yay!
I am Christina Remy. My pronouns are she or they. Visual descriptors. I have brown hair with some other colors in the back that you can't really see. I have clear glasses, gray shirt. I'm a little outclassed here, but I am previous game industry, and I have about 3 plus some change years in the game industry, and I was previously a producer and designer.
I totally forgot the vision descriptors. I'm in a white shirt, boot earrings, and brown hair. Sorry, guy.
No worries. Thanks, Becca. Thanks, everyone. So before we kind of jump in, I wanted to issue a little bit of a trigger warning. Part of the reason that we made room for this panel on our Twitch schedule this month was because of the litigation that the state of California issued against Activision Blizzard. While this panel is not about the lawsuit, and we won't be speaking directly to it, we will be or could be discussing topics about abuse, harassment, discriminations, and other difficult topics. So if you need to excuse yourself, take care of yourself. We totally understand. Also, this is a roundtable. That's not just us four, right? It is everybody here. So we very much want to create this place where you can share your thoughts and stories as well. So when we ask a question, feel free to put your answers in chat. And we'll read some out between our different questions. And if you have questions for us, please put those in chat as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. As I mentioned before, the panel came about kind of because of everything going on with the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. And unfortunately, if you follow the game industry or work within the game industry, this didn't really come as a surprise. It feels like every year there's some kind of scandal or news about similar situations in other companies and organizations. So not to start us off on a really negative note, but what are some of the negative experiences that you've had while working in the game industry? And we'll throw it open to whoever wants to go first.
Oh, man. All right. I will go, and I'm going to name it. When I was a contractor for a good amount of years, at least 3 to 4 years, when I was at Oculus, and I'm going to name it, we had a full-time employee who was abrasive and abusive. to contractors. One of my colleagues called him a bull in a china shop. And when I spoke up about this particular behavior, because he was more senior, I lost my job because of it. There were repercussions for speaking up when there was unacceptable behavior. And when you're a contractor, it's so much more hard to do that because you wield, in their minds, you wield no power. I was something that left such a mark because I loved my team. I loved the developers I worked for. But I think that was my first, like, realization that we're playing a completely different dynamic here with power.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I feel like, there's so many other topics that we could talk about within the game industry in terms of like discrimination. And I think vendor culture, we could have like a whole other panel about vendor culture and tech in the game industry. Yeah, I spent a lot of years as a contractor. So anyway, go ahead. Next person.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely bounce off of that a little bit because my only real experience, like most of the time that I was in the industry, I was in a contractor role, and something like I'll just put it out there while we're in the like middle of this, I guess, is that like definitely anybody who's interested in being in the industry or who is in the industry right now as a contractor, know your rights. You might actually be an employee by the law, and I would just advise that anybody in that position figure out what that means, because that can include things like, are your hours set by your employer, are they set by you, do you define what is the scope of your work, etc. So I just want to put that as a thing because that was one of the hard lessons I had to learn, and that was one of the negative experiences for me, was basically working as an employee but being treated as a contractor in the industry. So I'll say that. I had like a million things I could bring up, but I'm gonna just like narrow my focus to one other thing that it was like particularly impactful. Is that we actually, everybody's forgotten about it now a little bit, but the Gamergate thing that happened, we were a small indie studio, and we did manage to draw the Eye of Sauron at one point, in that we had a very angry reviewer on Steam who publicized a complaint that they had to everybody far and wide, and we just got hit really hard on all of our social media, on our forums, emails, etc. It was a big explosion, and for me that left a really long-term personal negative impact because I was very scared, because I had very recently seen what had happened to people who went against the orc horde, and so I definitely had to take a lot of steps to shut everything down, to make everything private, change my passwords. I definitely, like, it was a big part of what was negative for me.
Yeah, I can also speak to stuff on Steam. So when we worked on BattleTech, one thing we did, which was, it shouldn't be like super like groundbreaking or revolutionary, but in the character creation screen, you don't get to pick the gender of your character, you just get to pick pronouns. And we had 3 options, and one of which was they, them, and we got review bombed because we included an option that made people feel included in and could create a character that they identified with, and people review bombed us on Steam. And it wasn't just at the company level, just getting a product review bombed. It was also things like people going on social media and going after particular people in the studio, and just that sort of there was just a lot of general toxicity about this. But that's not particular to BattleTech and that game. It's just this is a industry-wide issue with how game developers and consumers of games interact with each other. And we have this, and oddly specific to games, I think, also because we have this very small feedback loop between the creators and the consumers of this product, which doesn't exist for a lot of other products. I don't know, I like gardening, so I'm just I would never go and find someone that made flower pots and yell abuse at them for no reason or find out where they lived and send the cops to their house to swat them. Like that just doesn't happen. Like, but for some reason, games attracts this kind of behavior. And yeah, like, but that's like the game developer and gamer relationship. Sometimes also the call feels like it comes from inside the house because there's also toxicity within the industry. So I can speak generally to a lot of this stuff. Like, just I've been in meetings where I'm running a meeting because I'm a producer and I'm being talked over and interrupted, or I'm the only woman or the only person of color or the only whatever in the meeting, and I'm being asked to represent a monolith of people. I've been in interviews where like I was being interviewed and the entire interview loop was all white men and not a single one of them could tell me what the male to female ratio was at the company, even though like you would think that's a relatively common question. Like thankfully one person that was on that loop did say, I don't know, but I will go and find out. And he actually got back to me. So that was cool because otherwise I'm just like, this is bad kind of thing. There's also just general challenges with advancement and culture fit. So there's studies about how people across different areas of marginalization are less likely to advance once they even get their foot in the industry. And then also just what those criteria look like for advancement, because they are relatively subjective, even though everyone is supposed to be held to the same standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have similar experiences with kind of that kind of workplace environment where I actually kind of consider myself lucky because I haven't had these horrible, egregious things happen to me. Like I've heard many of my coworkers and, you know, stories that are coming out on the internet now. And anytime these stories break, right, we hear all the horrible things that are going on in the industry. But definitely the little things like being referred to as a girl and getting talked over in meetings and being told like, oh, you know, you're being emotional when you really are just passionate about something. One of the other things I experience quite frequently is kind of like this othering where I remember this one time I was having a conversation. We work in one of those open offices, and I was having a conversation with a coworker about how I was planning on building a PC so that I could play Destiny 2. And this person didn't even play Destiny 2, but someone interrupted our conversation to be like, oh man, you played Destiny 2, you should totally join our guild, and like just completely shut down the conversation that we were having so that he could talk to his bud. And I was like, oh, okay, that feels crappy. So moving on from that a little bit, do you think that these are experiences that are unique to the game industry? Or is this just a thing that happens if you're a woman working? And we can start with Christina, since you're actually not in the game industry anymore. Do you continue to see kind of these negative occurrences happen outside of the game industry?
Well, like I mean, we can probably all agree that sexism and discrimination are things that are going to happen all over the place. I think that the game industry has its own specific flavor. I think that there is a culture there that kind of was different from other places of employment that I've worked. And in that, like, for example, even just like the convention culture, like, again, we were an indie studio, so we were self-promoting a lot. So all of us were there, at our booth, and you were doing a lot of networking for the company and that sort of thing. And it is a boys club, and 80% of the people you're going to meet when you're going around and networking are going to be usually straight white dudes, with some variations on that. But it can definitely feel like the culture is driven by that idea that we had when we were kids, that we always heard that video games are for boys, and women, even though we should be so far beyond that, and even though it's a complete lie, somehow that culture, that idea just followed us into the actual workplace itself. So yeah, I would say that some of it's very very specialized to the game industry.
I want to jump in so bad. When you said that with networking, I have two really quick examples. It exists in spaces you might think it's safe. There was a BIPOC event, Black Indigenous people of color in tech. And at one point in the night, there's music and there's dancing because, you know, brown people love to dance. One of the organizers of the event came up behind me and smacked me right on my bottom. And this is a professional, like this is, you know, a semi-professional networking event. And in that moment, I was like, do I bring this up? And like, I haven't exposed who it was or what event it was because I'm afraid of doing so. Another example was at one of my very first networking events. I was speaking to a guy in front of me, and the guy behind me, who happened to be taller, interrupted my conversation that I was having to the gentleman in front of me. And I had to turn around, like, hi, I'm talking to this person right now. When I'm done is when you can begin. So it exists even in spaces that you think it shouldn't.
Yeah, one thing I think is really telling about this is I'm just thinking about professional conferences and just like what the level of professionalism, like what professionalism means in this industry. And it's really, really different from other things that I've experienced. So before I was a game developer, I was an academic. And then before I was an academic, I was a lawyer. And in both of those spaces, you have like, you know, they're dominated by cishet white men, and games is no different, but there's a slightly different flavor of it. Just I feel like because the industry is a lot younger, and it's kind of like the Wild West. We don't have this really well-defined like culture of what counts as professionalism, and people just, you know, want to be edgy for the sake of whatever, I don't know. But it's things like that where, you know, people see what they can get away with, and see, you know, how far they can push their power dynamics. And even in like, you know, even at what we consider professional events, like I go to the game developers conference every year, and it's like the biggest kind of like professional industry event we have. And there are multiple whisper networks that have to exist just for this event so that people from marginalized genders know who to avoid and what parties to avoid and where not to go. And it's just exhausting to have to like manage all that, because like, you know, you're trying to like network and you're trying to like talk to people about like work related stuff, and then at the same time you have to like make like, you know, you have to keep yourself safe, which I mean, it's not unreasonable to want to keep yourself safe, but it's like this extra mental like cognitive load that you have to manage at the same time, which is just a thing that cishet white dudes don't have to deal with.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to, like, that isn't a burden that you should have to carry to do your job. You shouldn't have to be, I mean, it's like telling people like for their job that they go to a place and it's like, just so you know, like on the down low, there's some serial killers here, just, you know, avoid this list, here you go. And it's like, oh, cool.
Like maybe you should not do that.
Maybe you should just not have them here.
And I mean, like, like, and speaking of that, also like a relatively recent thing that came out in the industry was like there is a industry specific publication, which is one of the prominent ones for game jobs and like, you know, what's going on in the games industry, and its name is Gamma Sutra. And and the news was that just recently got changed, so now it's called Game Developer. But for like however many, like 20 whatever years it was, it's like, cool, one of the foremost industry publications is named after a book, which is most commonly known for sex positions. Great. Like that makes me feel really comfortable. That sort of why does this have to exist?
It's so intense that don't want to give too much away because I don't want to put this group in danger, but there is a group that exists for a game conference, so that way women don't have to walk alone back to their hotel rooms. The fact that that has to exist, and yes, I get it, you know, cities have their own flavor of like safety, but that has to exist because of the game developers that go there, not just because of the city.
So taking a look at chat just to see what people are saying. I apologize if I say your name wrong, because reading is out loud especially is like my childhood fear come to life.
Oh no.
So Delilah Wilson says, being told good girl is one of my pet peeves. Absolutely. That's so inappropriate.
Yeah.
Let's see. Viridiana Avila, I think is how you say it. +1's this also happens in academia, like Joe was saying. Yeah, let's see. And our Nightbot is reminding people that if you need help, if you're being harassed online, there's some resources in chat that you can reach out to. Let's see, what's our next question? So this one is inspired by our GeekGirlCon staffer, our game team manager 2.0. Shout out to 2.0 if she's here. This one is for those of us that are still in the industry. Why have you stayed?
Okay, I would be lying if I said I wasn't motivated in some part by spite.
That's real.
Like,
A valid good reason.
Like, and I don't want to be like super petty about it or whatever, but I have been told so many times no in the industry, like you're doing this job, but we don't think you're ready for this promotion, or like, there's always like some excuse, like, we think you're really awesome, but you don't get this job, or like, why don't you fit in with, like, and there's all this, like, I don't know, there's all this baggage that comes with that, and I'm just like, I'm gonna, like, if I have to carry this, then I'm gonna like do something with it, which is prove these people wrong. And so it is spite in some way, but also I feel like there's something that is valuable about staying here in the industry. Like, statistically, the average lifespan of a game developer is 5 years, and that's like the average game developer who is a cishet white man. So for women and for people of color and for people at the intersections of those, it's even lower. So there's something about making it past what I thought would be my like exit, like my life expectancy in the industry, and then the average life expectancy that was like really satisfying, just to be like, yeah, I did it. But I think now it's also something about removing generational trauma for future game developers. I don't want people who come up into the industry who are from marginalized backgrounds to have to go through the same crap that I did. Like, I want to hold the door open for them, and I want to be visible and let them see that, like, people that look like them are here, or people, like, you don't have to be a cishet white man to like exist and succeed. You can succeed if you are a minority. And I think that is a lot of what motivates me now.
That's awesome.
I really want to +1 that. There is a word in Spanish for stubborn. It's called necia, and I've been called that my whole life. And what has motivated me is, like, for every door that has been closed, every like white man in this industry that has said no, I will go find a company that will say yes to what I'm trying to do. And I don't want to be the last Latina in any sector of gaming. I want Latinas to look at me and go, I can do that, regardless of immigration status, knowing that they can step into this role and do this too. And yeah, maybe play games for a living. Like, it's entirely possible. But I would be lying if I didn't say that the Black and brown women that I have met are such huge motivators, because it's kind of similar to politics, where they're like, okay, well, if you're not going to give me this role, I'm going to give it to myself, and create studios like, I think Brass Lion is one of them, Brass Lion Entertainment. They create the content then for themselves and for other people, and that is such a huge motivator to me. Like, you can't stop me. I think that's what has done it for me and has kept me here.
I love that. I love both of those answers. The idea of, I feel like I can shoulder a lot of stuff, right? And the more I have to shoulder and the higher up I get in the ranks, like, the less of a burden it is for the people who come behind me. So I think that's awesome and really great. All right, what's our next question? Are things improving for women, people of color, LGBTQIA+, other marginalized communities, is the industry moving in the right direction? Is it stagnant? Is it regressing? What do you all think?
I'm definitely interested to hear their answers because, like I've been outside for a little while, and it's like I would consider going back in if I felt like things were improving and that those opportunities were like getting better. And that, so I'm very curious.
You take it, Joe.
Okay. I guess I kind of want to answer this with like a weird answer where it depends on what we mean by what things are we talking about for improvement? Because I feel like visibility and like just seeing more representation in the industry is better now. Like it's not great, but I mean the bar was in the basement to start with, so like anything up from there I guess technically is an improvement. Yeah, so I think things are better in terms of like I was in a meeting the other day at work, and it was not a meeting about diversity and inclusion stuff. And we had more people of color in this meeting than we had white people. And there was this weird moment because we were just talking, like I produced our UI team, and we were just like talking about like, what these particular concept art things we were looking at were about. And we were just reviewing them. And then I just looked around the room, and I mean, it was virtual, but it was like, there are faces in this room that look like me. Like, whoa, what is this? Is this what it's like normally for like white dudes? Like, what is this? Like, what is this feeling? And yeah, and that was really cool because I don't think I've ever experienced that before. And this was like last week, and I've been in the industry for years. Like, what?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think there is more of that happening, but I think there's also more people are starting to, like, as visibility increases, people find each other and can make those connections, and then you're not alone. Like, even if you are literally the one person in the meeting or whatever, somewhere after you're done with that meeting, there's someone you can talk to, there's someone you can like vent about like whatever the bullshit that happened at work was. And I think that is really powerful for creating those like and fostering those communities. And I feel like that is getting better, but a lot of that is like done by marginalized folks themselves. Like that's not something that was handed to us. We just had to create this.
I think that we're getting hired, but there are layers to this question. We're getting hired, but are we getting promoted? Are we getting into like executive level places outside of just like brand ambassadors? To that extent, I don't know. I think that we have a long way to go before we're equal on that footing, because I think that a lot of us are hired, but in terms of being taken seriously as leaders, that's a tougher question. Latinos in gaming has been a godsend, because had it not been for them, I would have felt very alone. I would have felt very, very alone. So we have a long way to go. There's a lot of progress. And as somebody who has worked for Oculus and Facebook and Google, I would say that smaller companies are doing a better job of it. I think it's because they wield a little bit more power, because I see a lot more women in HR than I do in like actual game development areas. So that's kind of my humble opinion on it. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've only ever worked at large corporations, so I'm at Xbox now, and my first day in ship room, I was literally the only female there, and I don't know that I saw a single person of color. And since the 2 years or 2 and 3 years, how long have I been there? I've seen them hire a lot more diverse candidates. But like you said, like it's all lower level stuff and a lot higher level. And so I don't see as many women in position like mid-level management positions. And I worry that we make all these efforts to hire more diverse people, but then we don't give like a proper support system for them. So put them in these positions, and then when they don't do well, or for whatever reason, or say they like lower a level so that they can find a more diverse pool of candidates, they're not willing to put in that like mentorship and stuff in order to make sure that that person succeeds. So I think that is a huge missed opportunity. And I feel like even if we hire more women and more people of color, attrition is going to be just as bad if we don't put those support systems in.
They used to say on panels that they know how to get the girl, they don't know how to keep her. They don't.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And
yeah, on that point, I think it's really important to have those those support systems in place before you put someone in that position and then are surprised when they do not succeed, and or having to use that person as a guinea pig for building your system, because I've been that person and it really sucks. And it's just like, I get that, like, people who are in leadership positions who do not have my lived experience, for example, want to do they want to do well. They have good intentions about, like, diversifying their workforce or whatever. But unless like you actually do that intentionally, and like you have a plan for how you are going to be inclusive and how you're going to be supportive when all these people who communicate differently maybe from you, or have different lived experiences and will understand microaggressions in a different way from you, or whatever these things are, like, unless you have all those mechanisms in place, you're just going to have this weird revolving door of, like, like, your diversity does not increase. Like, it's a zero-sum game because you just keep losing those people. There's a really good graphic I've seen online about, like, the problem women of color at work, where she, like, and it's just like, a woman joins a company, everyone's really excited because yay, diversity. Then she starts calling out things, like she says, hey, here are things that are problematic, here are things that your company could do better. And then that becomes uncomfortable for people who are in leadership positions. She gets branded difficult and then leaves, and then you just repeat that forever, basically. So yeah, I think Becca had a better way of describing the situation than I did with her analogy, because my one is, you do not fix the meat grinder by putting more meat into it, but it's the same thing. It's just like, you do not, like, you need to like fix your shit, industry. Like, yeah, we're not here to fix it for you.
Because we're expected to tear down what sort of the systems that oppressed us in the first place, or kept us out of those, like, executive level positions. You hire us, you don't really know what to do with us when we start calling out, like, what's wrong. And, like, that's really not how you make something better. You're gonna rather die. Fix it.
So on that note, what are some ways that the industry could do better? Fix the game industry, everyone. Yeah, here, right now.
Just stop being racist. I don't know. Like, yeah. I mean, one thing that has, like, I want to say this has always baffled me, but also never baffles me, is the degree to which the industry takes toxicity and harassment seriously, which is minimal. It's like, there's this whole trade-off where it's like, oh, we know this person is toxic and, like, they're a terrible person, but they're really good at their job. They're a rock star. So just, you deal with it. And then it becomes like an extra burden you put on, like, the people that are impacted by harassment and toxicity to have to, like, manage that as well as their full-time job, as well as, like, whatever, like, other D&I stuff that you're also doing on the side, which is just really kind of messed up. And I don't, like, I wish I could just be like, here's the one sentence solution for this, but I don't know what that would look like. I just want there to be better mechanisms for people to develop empathy for other people, and, like, just think a little bit about what you're saying and what you're doing before you do it. Like, it's like, it's not hard. Just, like, maybe take a moment and think about what you're doing and how that might impact other people who do not have your lived experience. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like that meme that I've been seeing going around. It's like, I don't know how to tell you that you should care about other people. Like,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I would say to make this industry better is that a lot of marginalized groups, they don't need a think tank, they just need funding for their game. Give them money. They already have the ideas and the, a lot of that mapped out beforehand. Give them the money to make their games. And also listen to Black women. A lot of Black content creators are getting hate rated right now, and Twitch is doing nothing. So I've been putting a little pressure on some of my Amazonian friends who are still there, because quarterly you're able to ask Jeff Bezos questions. Start asking him why Twitch hasn't addressed that. That's his company, or whomever is running Twitch now. Listen to Black women.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess some that I would add on top of that would be just highlighting the work of marginalized people, not just from the outside, but I mean, our communities in general should do that, but internally as well, because there's a lot of merit. Like, we were trying to think of the word. I was discussing this with other people the other day, and we were trying to think of the right word, and it's kind of merit theft, which kind of happens, and where somebody will take credit for ideas, or those ideas from people that are, as we were saying earlier, a lot of marginalized people end up more towards the bottom, tier of the staff, and not the person that's usually like the CEO or something that's up at the top getting all of the credit, or the creative director or something, even though a lot of the ideas and the actual work is done by people who are, the artists and the programmers and the producers and the designers and the QA people, and they're just not being highlighted, and nobody's acknowledging those efforts. And so I think bringing that forward would be really good to see.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, we had a conversation about this recently at work. There was a really interesting article that went out. I'm trying to remember the publication for it, but it was basically about why, like, one of the biggest problems in the games industry is that stories about women are told by men. Like, if you think about who the creative directors are, who the art directors are, who, like, whatever, like, in all those, like, when you get that, like, power strata, like, who are the people making the calls? And statistically, a lot of the times it is dudes that do not have these lived experiences. And one thing that is important that I think Christina pointed out is there are people who are not just cis white men that also make the game, and for insofar as they can be protected from the inevitable toxicity and harassment that comes with this, we should highlight those people. We should celebrate what they do as well. Another thing is, even if there are those people at the individual contributor or the junior to middle management levels, we're not seeing those people in decision-making positions. We're not seeing them at leadership levels where they can make decisions about the direction a game goes in, or if we're talking about studio leadership, what the studio culture is going to be like. And those are places where key decisions happen, and they are made on behalf of people who are marginalized, but not but those decision makers are not people who are marginalized. And there is this weird thing that happens where it's thanks, but this is not what I want, when people try to do things that they think are good for D&I, and I'm just no, not like that. And then they go, well, why are you so ungrateful? And I'm well, you never asked me what I wanted, so I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
Two quick things. When I was at a game developers conference, I had the lowest tier of entry for it. And out of the 6 to 10 substance painter panels I went to, one of which was by a woman. So with that being said, looking at your panel, if you are a person that runs a con of some sort and you see your panel is fairly homogenous, either call it out or try to diversify it. I think that's a smaller way, on a smaller scale, we can start shifting what our industry looks like. Because there's plenty of women on the artistic side that are doing this stuff, and you just don't see them because they're not on those panels. So that's one of the things I think that would vastly improve our industry.
Definitely.
Yeah. Taking a quick look at, or getting caught up on chat. So Do the Jump says, mentorship and support is too important. Nobody thinks twice about the degree of mentorship and coaching that academics or sports professionals receive. Why do people still think throwing new hires into the deep end and expecting them to thrive is going to have good results? I plus one to that, 1,000%.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mentors and sponsors. Like, sponsors are the ones with power that are going to get you those positions.
Yeah, one of my pet peeves in the tech and gaming industry, in my personal experience, I don't know if this is true of everywhere, obviously, but onboarding is just generally terrible. And like nobody knows how to do it right. And there's not good documentation. And it drives me a little bonkers to expect people to walk into a room and be able to contribute 1,000% when they're brand new or they've never been in this industry before or whatnot. So yeah, so we agree with you. Do the jump.
I completely agree. You are set up for failure as a contractor when it comes to onboarding, unless a previous contractor has created those documents.
Right?
Yep.
Yes. Let's see what else is folks saying. B Doodle says, invest in people's experiences, not their gender nor their race. This should never be what determines the ceiling we hit. Gel Bell says, we have had speakers come in to talk about emotional intelligence and unconscious bias. It seemed useful to have everyone go through that so they're aware of certain behaviors, patterns, and situations to take into consideration. Yeah, I think training is good to like a certain extent. I think, you know, at larger corporations, I've seen people kind of like, because we're all required to take a certain amount of D&I training and unconscious bias training. And I feel like sometimes people use it as an excuse to be like, oh yeah, I know all about that. Don't worry, I took the class.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know about racism.
Right?
I have the certificate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Once.
Yeah, and I think those are great starting points, but I feel like until you have conversations about that and like internalize them via conversation with other people, that I'm not sure how effective they are, honestly. I wish there were some statistics I could pull from.
Yeah, like you have to take a class on it. I live it. Like it is two different things, and it kind of comes from a place of privilege. And I think that, you know, the best apology is change behavior, right? And that is something that happens over time, versus maybe a 4-hour class that most people aren't going to pay attention to.
Right? They're like, especially during COVID, you're like half watching the training, half answering emails.
I watch training videos. For what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think there's also something to be said about, you know, when you have training that is required and it's mandated by HR or something, and everyone's just like, oh, here's like my annual whatever training. Like, I'm just going to sit here and roll my eyes. And it's very different when people choose to do this themselves as opposed to being forced to do it. And one thing I found to be quite effective in helping people get to the point where they feel, you know, hey, this is something I want to learn more about is just storytelling is a really powerful medium. Just, I am a person, here is what it is like to be me. And doing that builds empathy and helps people like get, like, you know, they're not going to be like, okay, cool, now I know what it's like to be Joe or whatever, but like they're not going to get that full picture, but it gives them a glimpse into like the challenges that I have every day, and like, you know, how how their particular behavior might impact me. And I think there's value in that, just, you know, so they're not like being forced to do it, but they can relate in some kind of like, hey, you are actually a real person kind of thing, which sounds very trite, but like it's been pretty effective in my experience anyways.
Awesome. We should make a video game about our lived experience. No, I'm just kidding. That'll be our HR training. No.
Yeah.
Jam.
Okay. So our kind of last topic that we've got, please in chat, if you've got questions for us, please add them. We'll definitely answer them. So shortly after the news broke about the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, Kotaku writers Ari Notice and Patricia Hernandez tweeted out a call for women in the games industry to contact them with the, quote, cool shit they've done in the industry. They took a bunch of stories and published an article on Kotaku called The Kick-Ass Shit That Women in the Game Industry Don't Get Enough Credit For. So my final question for everybody, what are some of your badass game industry accomplishments or just workplace accomplishments that we can celebrate you for?
I guess I'll go first since mine is like the oldest, and
Yeah.
I've had to put it on my resume enough times, I guess. So I was the producer and part-time designer on a survival RPG that had received a lot of funding on Kickstarter, and I was there from a pretty early stage on development and all the way through early access and release, and post-development updates and patches. And so like a lot of the work I was doing was production, but because we were small, I was also doing I was doing level design, character interactions. I helped something that people might not know. I guess I could just drop the name, by the way. It's Dead State. If anybody wants to look it up, they can look it up. But I did a lot of the work on the leveling system in terms of how difficult the encounters were, and the on the map, because there was like you had a central base, and so I kind of helped develop the tiers of difficulty on encounters and compared to how easily you could reach places. And yeah, I built a lot of the smaller levels in the game. In the 3D game engine, we were using Torque. So I did a lot of design work too, and so I was pretty proud of that. And I oversaw a lot of the Kickstarter reward production. So we had like 10,000 backers that we were sending physical rewards to, and as well as digital rewards. And I did a lot of coordinating of that and getting everything, together. And so, yeah, that's some of my stuff.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Who wants to go next?
Go, Joe, go.
Okay, well, I already mentioned that I founded the Bungie Diversity Committee in 2017. So that was, I believe at the time, it was one of the first like studio initiatives that kind of paired or like connected members from marginalized groups. Like we had our own like kind of grassroots like employee resource group things going on, but it paired us with leadership in a way where it made us it made Bungie create a very specific D&I plan for how they were going to approach issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion at like, within the studio, within the gaming community, and within the industry as a whole. So one of the biggest things I feel like I've done is I wasn't just a founding member of that, I founded it. So that was pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was a founding member of the Jedi Council at HVS, as I've also mentioned. And based on those two things, I also won an Alumni Achievement Award from my alma mater for my work in D&I and games, which feels really weird because I'm just like there were all these like scientists and whatever there, and I'm just like, I make games, and they're like, here, have this award, and I'm like, okay, cool. So that was awesome. Other than that, I don't know. It's like I've written book chapters, I've been featured on podcasts, I've had articles about my work, I've spoken at a bunch of professional conferences, and in 2019, I started a hashtag on Twitter called What a Game Dev Looks Like, and it was just like in response to like a bad experience I had at GDC when I was trying to get my speaker pass. Like I was in the line for getting speaker badges, and I had three different security guards come up to me and tell me that I was in the wrong line because surely I could not be a speaker. And yeah, so I was like, this is kind of bad. So then I was just like, hey, weird story that happened like the day before GDC started, and that got picked up. And then I started this hashtag called What a Game Dev Looks Like. And it was just like, take a picture of yourself, use the hashtag. And even now, like when I despair at the state of the industry, I look at that hashtag because it still exists on Twitter, and then I get reminded that the industry is like brown and it's femme and it's black and it's disabled and it's trans and it's Latinx and it's all these things, and it has been this all along. So I hope like if you go find it, that it has the same impact for you that it does for me when I'm just like, I need a nice thing. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
totally remember that hashtag. I had no idea you
Mhm.
started it. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
That was
That is.
Wow. I'm like starstruck now. Like, whoa.
Right? Joe is literally the coolest person I know.
Right?
But
Oh man. Or I always feel like I have to prove something being a QA tester in this industry. But some of the things that I have worked on, backwards compatibility for Xbox One. I was one of the QA testers for that. I helped launch the Oculus Quest for Oculus VR and was also involved in their R&D. I gave them feedback and said, I want more skin color in these avatar options. I basically showed them the Fenty palette and I'm like, make this work. It's just a coat. I assisted with the Google Stadia, Amazon Luna, because I love the idea of streaming games. I know it depends on your network connection, but I really want games to be more accessible. I did wearable assets for high fidelity VR because of another Latina who's a 3D artist. Her name is Jasmine. She's so nice. I want to be her when I grow up. She opened a lot of doors for me to be able to take on some more freelance work on top of my QA testing. So, and finally, here in Seattle, I have been told a lot of BS from recruiters that like Latinos they just don't apply for our jobs. So I started the Latinos in Tech Hackathon with the Latino Community Fund and Latinos in Tech Seattle. I was able to fill that room with 30 different Latinx developers to prove them wrong, basically, along with small businesses that needed websites. And so, yeah, Latinos in Tech Hackathon here in Seattle. That was me.
Rad.
Amazing. Wow. You guys
So
are
cool.
badasses.
Yeah. And I just want to put a little note also on what Rabecca was saying. Like, I just think that that's one of those accomplishments that needs to be highlighted, because you say like, oh, you know, QA, but it's like that feedback that you gave about more skin colors, for example, is such a big part of the experience when the game releases. And so that's such an important thing to do. Even like just feedback, like that kind of thing is like so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Absolutely.
next.
yeah, there's probably like a kid out there that looked at that and is impacted by that, and
Absolutely.
you've like changed their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So taking a look at chat really quickly. So Bedoodle says, I championed the first Blizzard charity auction 2015 that had unique and one-of-a-kind art and collectibles. Still proud of that one, even with Blizzard being on fire at the moment. That's awesome,
cool.
Bedoodles. Good work. Let's see what else we missed in chat. Alyssa Lena asks the question, why are you all so great and the best? Thoughts? No. I think you just all said why you're the greatest and the bestest. Buggles has a question, says, what strengths do you find being a woman or non-binary person in the game industry? Sorry, I said that a little bit weird, but I think...
I think at this stage of the game industry's lifespan, if you want to call it that, like, or whatever, like, given the age of the games industry and what's happened, people are a lot more receptive to what gender marginalized folks want to say, and like you have a platform. And I think being able to kind of speak truth to power is something that is really, really useful for being someone who is marginalized, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for everyone that comes after you. And I think like being from a background where it's just like, hello, I insert minority here kind of thing, there's this sense that like it feels really challenging sometimes, but I think like being able to do that and then find your voice means you are able to do this for a group. You are an advocate. You have space that you can hold, not just for yourself, but for other people.
If somebody at some point considers me a veteran, I think I would have made it. But for a little bit of just what this looks like coming from like a Latinx, Latina perspective, Latinx make up less than 10% in the tech industry, and they make up, I think, 2% in the gaming industry. But that being said, I understand the significance of the Latinx market. We are the 10th biggest market. And if you see value in that and knowing that, like, yes, we game and yes, we buy, that's incredibly powerful because money talks in this industry. So yeah, there's a little bit of drive behind that, but my strength is understanding the value of where we belong, and it's in this industry.
Yeah, I would agree that, I mean, just being in the industry increases representation of all different kinds of people. And so, yeah, we need people who are actually in those groups making that content. And because like people can tell, it's just like when we, you see the memes about men writing women, or what we were saying earlier, men writing stories about women, creating video games about women. Like women can tell that it's probably not a woman. Usually they can tell when it's not. Yeah. So and so we feel alienated as players or the audience unless we see the hand of people like us in the mix. So
Exactly.
I think that's an important role.
I think the statistic is like 50% of gamers are women now. So it doesn't make any sense that the industry doesn't match that. Okay, Bedoodles also says, oh shoot, actually perhaps the oldest thing I'm most proud of is that I was one of the 2 voices you'd get if you called the 1-800 number for a video game tip of the day.
That's amazing.
That's some old school stuff. That's awesome.
I have never heard of this before. Do you know, what is this?
Okay, so
I need to know more.
Back in the day when you were stuck, I think a Nintendo did this. I don't know if other game companies did this. You could call a hotline and they could walk you through either the level or if you were having technical issues. That is a flex.
Yeah. Damn. Wow. That's awesome.
That's amazing. All right. Well, that basically gets us caught up with chat and gets us to the end of our set of questions. So I think we will go ahead and sign off. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Thanks, Joe, Christina, and Rabecca for being here and contributing your awesome perspectives. Thanks, everybody who was in chat and chatting with us and keeping us company. Come back on Thursday when Christina, and Taryn will be playing the much-anticipated Psychonauts 2. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have a mini book club for the web series 17776, which is like a sci-fi sports mini web series. That's really cool. It only takes about 2 hours to read, so definitely read that and come join us for our mini book club. If you're new here, hit that follow button. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you all on Thursday. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Hey.